we finally have our 2024 Super Bowl champion in the Philadelphia Eagles. And I got to be honest with you, this is the most like Jonah thing to happen because I finally make a bet on the Chiefs and I lose.
I didn't even know you
So
made a bet. That's kind
I
of
just made a
hilarious.
$20 bet with Octavio, and the moment I finally put money on the Chiefs, they lose. Like, should have saw that one coming, I guess.
Well,
But
maybe you just need to like buy your way into the things you want happening.
well, that's what I was saying because I was like, even if the Chiefs lose, I'm paying $20 for them to lose. That's worth it to me.
I'd say
So
that's worth every penny.
yeah. But in all honesty, the game reminded me. I mean, it reminded me of the Bucks Chiefs game a couple years ago, but it really reminded me of the Broncos Seahawks because at the end of I think it was what was it 24 nothing or yeah, it was 24 nothing at half.
It was 24
And
nothing at half, and before the Chiefs ever got on the board, it was 34 to nothing. So yeah, at that point in the game, I mean the Chiefs got some more garbage time points than the Broncos did, but yeah, it was extremely similar to the Seahawks performance against the Broncos, where it was not a contest basically from the get-go.
yeah, and I think we were even winning by less points at halftime than the Eagles were. We were up
Hmm
22 to nothing, and then we got the kick return touchdown. So it was cool to see just because it was like we haven't seen a blowout pretty much since our Super Bowl, and they were doing it in almost the same fashion,
Yeah,
which
it's actually eerily similar because I mean, I like Jalen Hurts got Super Bowl MVP, but he played I mean, I'll be honest, I think he didn't play as good of a game as Russell Wilson did against the Broncos in 2013. But really, it should have gone to someone on the Eagles defense because that defense and specifically that defensive line on the Philadelphia front. I mean, we've been talking about them for years where they just keep drafting these monsters from Georgia and from,
yeah,
getting some
it's
high profile free
sorry to
agents.
interrupt you. It's pissing me off because it's not like they're doing anything like they're not overthinking anything. You or me could draft what they're drafting.
Yeah, the league let them get Jalen Carter at 10, and sure, he's kind of a psycho as a human being, but I mean, fuck,
Isn't that what you want?
yeah, on the defensive tackle position, I don't really want a totally sane person. But yeah, I mean this defensive line just absolutely obliterated the Kansas City offense in a way that I've never seen happen really since I mean even before Patrick Mahomes, even when Alex Smith was still their quarterback. Since Andy Reid has been there, you have not seen them fail this catastrophically or even really anything close to it. The closest thing I could think of was the Buccaneers Super Bowl, but that wasn't nearly as lopsided as this. And you take a look at the box score on the Chiefs offense, and at one point in the third quarter, I believe, I think the Chiefs had less than 60 yards at that
Yeah.
point, which
Hmm.
is mind-blowing. And the Chiefs' leading rusher was Patrick Mahomes with 25 yards on scrambles. After that, you go down the list, Kareem Hunt, 3 carries, 9 yards, Samjay P. Ryan, or Samaje, whatever, 1 carry for 8 yards, and then Isaiah Pacheco, 3 carries for 7 yards. So not even not even like a whisker of a rushing attack from the Chiefs, and perhaps that was a mistake because Mahomes made a couple really, really bad mistakes early on in this game. One that people aren't really talking about is that low throw to Travis Kelce. I know Kelce like could have caught that. That was on Mahomes. That was a bad throw. Interception to what's the guy's name on the Eagle? Let me just look it up real quick. I can do that.
Cooper
Yeah, Cooper DeJean getting the pick six. I
on his
mean, it's
birthday. It's pretty
on his
sick.
birthday, you know, the
It was
first
also Saquon's birthday. So
that's
the
true.
Eagles birthday boys got a probably the best birthday they've ever had.
Yeah, that's a hell of a birthday bash. But that throw, I mean, Mahomes is running to his right and throwing late over the middle, which is something that he gets away with often because he's Mahomes, but he's not even if you are the best quarterback in the league, hubris is a real thing, and I think that's kind of what showed up in this game because that basically the game was basically over on that pick six, and then the other one where he was kind of pressured and just didn't lead Hopkins, I believe, enough, and it was picked off by the linebacker, Zach Bond. Great catch, by the way. Those
Oh,
that basically just eliminated any shot of this being a game.
yeah, totally. And real quick, DeAndre Hopkins dropped one of the worst drops of his career in the Super Bowl, which was ironic. But did you see what he said to the press after the game?
It wasn't he complaining about the refs or something?
Yeah, it's like, bro, the refs didn't make the game 40-6.
Yeah,
You guys did.
let me play the world's smallest violin for you, Hopkins, for how much sympathy I have for you. Because literally, first drive of the game, the Eagles make a beautiful fourth down play to AJ Brown, and it gets called back on a very Super Bowl XL
I know.
offensive
Yeah,
PI
that was such
penalty.
a Super Bowl XL flag right there. And it's like, DeAndre, that's the call everyone remembers, is the first one. That was terrible. Not,
Yeah,
I don't even know what calls he's referring to, but it, you're embarrassing yourself, my guy.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is just stupid. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this game has absolutely flipped the script on the narrative. I think that people have really been harping on the last 10 years, I would say, nearly, where everyone's like, oh, you got to have a top three quarterback to win the league. That's the only thing that matters. Give them all the money they want. Like if you don't have a Mahomes, a Allen, a Burrow, whatever, you can't do it. Well, they had a Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league, I would say still probably. And even a guy like that, if you don't have the talent around him, which I mean, we talked about it all season. We kept raking the Chiefs high, but the warts were evident from week one. The amount of little lucky things that went their way for them to scrape by these one score wins against teams like the Raiders, teams like the Broncos, not world beaters by any stretch. It finally came back to haunt them. And I feel like they were winning a lot of these games just by the color of their jerseys and the luck that kept being bestowed upon them, but they just weren't that good of a team this year, and they especially weren't that good of an offense.
I agreed. And this was something, Ryan, that like, I mean, I was saying it all year. I need to see it to believe it. I was the one that kept putting the Chiefs as number one. I didn't want to, but I
Hmm.
needed to see someone fucking beat them because they were just getting lucky all year. And I'm like, dude, are we gonna really just have a full season of anomaly? Because this doesn't make any sense that they're still here and they're still winning. And sure enough, I mean, it can't last forever. Like
Yeah.
what can wrong will go wrong, and you saw it here tonight. The Chiefs were clearly. I mean, I feel like everyone on the internet is saying like, yeah, you finally officiate a fair game, and this is what fucking happens. It's like, yeah, 40-6. There you go. I mean,
Yeah.
40-22, but those last two touchdowns did not matter. And it was actually kind of funny. I saw this post that was comparing this game to the Super Bowl 48. And someone in the comments was like, our differential was 35. Theirs was 34. But congrats, little brothers, on your Super Bowl win. Like it was a Seahawks fan, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, kind of true.
Yeah, I mean, for a minute there, I was like, man, they're approaching LOB territory here with this performance. But let's not forget, the Seahawks did that to the best offense ever. An offense that put up numbers that have not been surpassed, even with an extra game, even with these
And
rule changes.
let's not forget, Horsecock Lock defeated this Super Bowl roster. What?
Yeah, like
Less
13
than
months ago.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it just goes to show, and I mean, like I feel like there's a much larger point to take away from this game that I will eventually get to. But yeah, I mean, you can go from a team that goes one and done in the playoffs one year to a Super Bowl champion the next year. Not easily, but with the right moves and a focus on the right positions on the team, it can happen. You don't, I mean, like, let's be real. I think Jalen Hurts made some really good plays running in this game that just kept drives alive and kept
His
moving the
throws were
chains.
also every single pass had touch on it. It was just
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think that Jalen Hurts is necessarily a similar player to Brock Purdy, but they both have similar amounts of arm strength and great touch on the nine routes, the fly routes. And
Hmm.
that, I mean, Jalen was absolutely perfect on those throws in this game. And he made the one mistake with the pick, but he basically, I mean, this was so similar to the Seahawks in early days where, you have your quarterback only complete 17 passes, but be a big part of the running game and just not turn the ball over and play great defense. That's exactly what they did. And I feel like the Chiefs' entire game plan for this game was to shut down Barkley, and it worked. I mean, Saquon Barkley had 25 carries for 57 yards, 2.3 a touch.
Hmm.
Gainwell, 1.7 yards a carry. So, again, really similar to the Seahawks Super Bowl in 48 because people forget this, but Marshawn Lynch had like 29 yards in that game or something. Like we could not really run the ball against the Denver defense. But if you have a, playmaking quarterback that can make plays with his legs and take advantage of the opportunity, like there's more than one way to win a game. And to that point, I really feel like the fact that the Eagles have invested so much on the defensive line, which I mentioned first and foremost, but also their offensive line. I mean, clearly the best line in the league. They are unstoppable in short yardage situations. I think, something like a guy like Mark Schlereth always says, the game is one of the trenches. I think that was proven more correct than ever in the Super Bowl because you had this world beater quarterback not getting good pass protection, and he looked like Kenny Pickett.
Also, there was not a single blitz ran the whole game.
Zero. Zero.
That
Crazy.
hearing that makes it hurts me a little bit because like obviously hindsight like we did the right thing not drafting Jalen Carter. I don't think we had the locker room or really the foundation. I mean, the year before Pete gets fired, like drafting Jalen Carter in hindsight, I just yeah, I it's fair that we didn't do it.
Hmm.
But
And
hard
Witherspoon is an all pro. Like he's
he's
amazing. But
awesome. I love Devin Witherspoon, but it's hard to watch that game yesterday and not have regret.
yeah. Yeah, just because you're not in a position to get a guy like that very often. And I mean, we just got the top interior defensive lineman in the last draft, and
Well,
that's the
and
difference between someone like a Byron Murphy and a Jalen Carter, you know?
not to mention, I heard this on the Brock and Salk show today, because Brock was talking about how he really liked Cooper DeJean,
Hmm.
and uh, and then of course Salk, who's like the antagonist, basically mentions, "Oh yeah, well we could have had we could have had Jalen Carter instead of Devin Witherspoon, and then draft Cooper DeJean as our corner the following year, but instead we went in the opposite direction." And it's like, yeah, that sucks. But I mean, that's just the epitome of hindsight. Like you
Yeah, it's
can't
it's it's
know.
Monday morning quarterbacking at its finest, and it's also like it's not like we got two bad players. I still think Byron
We
Murphy's
have
going to be
great
really good.
players.
Yeah.
I love Byron Murphy. I love Devin Witherspoon. It's just funny to be like, I guess yeah, I guess we could have had both of them, maybe. But
Yeah, well, I mean, we could have had Travis Kelce, but we drafted Christine Michael. So if you want to play this game, if you want to play that game, you're just gonna be really sad really fast. Because it's hard. I mean, if drafting in the NFL were easy, then you'd have a lot more people doing it successfully. It's it's a really difficult game to play, and then even after you make the picks, you got to develop them and put a good situation around them, which
yeah,
is why even when you have teams like the Jets, for example, or the Browns get good players, their culture is such shit. It's like, okay, you're really talented, but you're never gonna win anything, until you change that. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's funny that, I said this during the game, but rewind to week 4 or whatever when the Eagles were on a cold streak. We're saying Nick Sirianni is a joke and making fun of Hungry and Humble, and he ended up being the savior of the whole season for us.
to be fair, yeah, Agreed. Shout out to Sirianni for saving our asses and not having to watch the three-peat. Also, shout out to him for just flipping the narrative right after we made that video. But at the end of the day, at the same time, this Eagles roster is so unbelievably talented. Like,
Yeah.
I, it's unfair for me to say I think if you inserted a different coach, I think you'd get the same result. But God, I just think this Eagles team is really talented at the end of the day.
I'm right there with you, and I know if any Eagles fans are listening, you're gonna like hate me after saying this, but I feel like Sirianni is kind of like when the Heat coach had the big three with LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, where it's like, well, yeah, you have like the best roster, so you
That's funny you say that because I was literally about to bring up Tyronn Lue on the 2016 Cavaliers. Like or like any of the
the
other
Warriors.
coaches any of the other coaches before Tyronn Lue that like I can't remember the guy's name, but like took LeBron and the Cavs to the finals and then he got fired and then they brought in Ty Lue and basically point being like it wasn't the coaching, it was the talent you had on the roster. Like
Mhm.
anyone could have taken that team to the championship. But I mean at the end of the day, Nick Sirianni's been to two Super Bowls in 3 years.
Yeah,
That's
I
not an
mean,
accident.
it's very painful to uh come to terms with this as a Seahawks fan, but the Eagles have now accomplished as much in 3 years as the peak LOB did from
They've
2012 to
accomplished more. They've
2015.
won more Super Bowls than us.
Well, that was the previous regime, though. Yeah, as a franchise as a whole, yeah. I mean, they're the best NFC franchise over the last, in the 2000s. We're probably second best, but they definitely eclipsed us with this one. And it's so hard to get to this game and to win this game. So it's a little frustrating that they've been able to go three times in the last 7 years now. But I mean, I don't think that we're a tremendous way away from that same spot. I mean, the Eagles just last season, they were like one of the worst teams in football down the stretch with like 90% the same roster. So,
And I kind of agree with you as far as a roster's talent standpoint, but the only thing I think that's the biggest, or not the only thing, but the biggest difference between us and the Eagles, I think, is consistency. Think how many games this season were we like, holy shit, we look like we could fucking beat anyone in the playoffs. And then the next week we're like, I don't want to watch this team for the rest of the
yeah,
year.
and I mean that's on Mike McDonald to right the ship in that category because I totally agree with you. They've kind of been like that for years at this point.
I
This
think, and this goes back to our Geno conversation. I think it kind of has been ever since Geno's our quarterback. Now, I'm not saying Geno is the reason. I'm just saying, like, the guys around Geno fuck up enough. Like, does Geno have enough of what it takes to correct the and make up for those mistakes? Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
So you're thinking
And
it's like a leadership thing, perhaps.
maybe, I think this next season, I'm just gonna need one more year from Geno, and this is a make or break year. This is a take us to the playoffs, win a playoff game. All right, let's
Yes,
start there.
please.
Win a playoff game, and then we will talk about
Yeah.
future Geno discuss. At least that's me. I know you feel differently, but
No, with what you just said, I don't really feel any differently at all. Like, I think if we either miss the playoffs or go one and done next year, like, what are we doing? But I just think that if we take a page out of the Eagles playbook, and also keep in mind they're paying Jalen Hurts a shitload of money. So don't come
and
at
I
me
think
with
Geno
the
is. I mean, okay, last night will pose a problem with this argument, but for the longest time, I thought Geno was as good as Jalen Hurts.
I think as a passer, he's much, much, much better. It's just, Jalen Hurts has that dual threat ability that while Geno can run, he can't run like Jalen Hurts.
But the
So that
fucked up thing with Jalen Hurts is he's like all these big games he plays in, he plays really well. So like,
Most of the time, yeah. I mean, especially like in the biggest stage and the biggest moments in this game, he was fantastic. Um, so what I will say we'll see how it goes in 2025. But I did just hear Mike McDonald basically alluding to a Geno extension in an interview the other day. So we'll see what happens with that.
and
Nothing
again,
matters until March, but
I I am not against that. I think what you said earlier about like the winning the game in the trenches, that was what that Super Bowl was. Let's just keep drafting. Like I've been saying this since 2 fucking seasons ago. Draft offensive line and defensive line, that's it.
mhm.
That's all we need.
At least high. Because I mean, look at how many receive like the Eagles were throwing bombs down the field to Jahan Dotson, who I mean, I think he was a relatively high draft pick, but
He was a
like
first round pick.
he was okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then like I mean, he's I've always thought he's a good player. I don't know why he's not in a bigger role, but like I, you can get impact players like Tyler Lockett, third round pick. You know, like use these mid round picks to build around the edges for skill players, but with the premium picks, go with the big boys or quarterback, you know, and
Yeah,
don't do quarterback this year because they're bad.
you want to be drafting rare human beings with those picks. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you right now, the 300 plus pound, 6 foot, 6 plus men, human beings, those are rare. Those don't grow on fucking trees.
The ones
So,
that can move and rush the passer and disrupt, yes, absolutely.
yeah,
So,
and skill guys are a dime a dozen. So let's
kind
not.
of,
They are. They really are.
yeah,
Think about it this way. Think about it this way. The Eagles a couple years ago took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, and they apparently had a coming to Jesus moment because after that day when they did that, who have they drafted since then? Big name players from the best programs. I
it's
would say
true.
that's worth it. I would say missing on Justin Jefferson and making up for it with a Super Bowl is worth not having Justin Jefferson.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I
So
mean, like, look what, like, Justin Jefferson, maybe the best receiver in football, second only to Jamar Chase, in my opinion. And what playoff success have the Vikings had because they have Justin Jefferson? That would be none, you know?
I almost
So,
feel like I believe having a wide receiver like Justin Jefferson where you're paying him all that money, but you don't have a Joe Burrow, like that's not a good formula to win because you're giving all that money to that guy who's
mhm.
dependent on several other positions to be great before he even can see the ball. So it's like,
Yeah, and to that exact point, look what happened with the Dolphins this year. You know, they're paying Tua a bunch of money. They're paying Tyreek Hill the most money at the position, and they had to sacrifice elsewhere. They had to sacrifice the offensive line. You know what happens? Tua gets concussed, and their season is basically over in week 3. So, like, there you go.
yeah.
And Dolphins fan, our friend Dylan, was complaining about that all offseason, like who the fuck is going to protect Tua? And yeah, it doesn't take like just casual fans can, you know, read the tea leaves on how that's going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Yeah. So point being, I guess I just now that we're in off-season territory, I'm all draft mode and I'm please, John, draft a guard and draft a fucking nose tackle, D tackle, edge rusher. Like draft all of it.
Yeah.
We need more.
Yeah, and make a splash move in free agency that isn't, you know, a Draymond Jones. Not that he's a bad player, but like if you're going to spend that much money, get someone that isn't like the B minus tier, you know? And that's the
And
biggest free agent contract we've given up. But think back to 2013 when we get Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett in one offseason. Like, let's see some more moves like that, you know?
well, and it's funny too because like I'm not just like I think the reason why I get so frustrated with like the Eagles' success is because 2 years ago when we drafted Charles Cross, love Charles Cross. I'm glad we did this instead of what I wanted to do, but I wanted to draft Jordan Davis instead, and we could have done that,
It's
but
true.
we took Charles Cross, and then fast forward a year. We can draft Jalen Carter, but we take not him. We take a corner, which love Devin Witherspoon. But it's frustrating for me personally because I'm like, I wanted these players. I wanted these big boys on our D line. And they're on the Eagles, and the Eagles just won the fucking Super Bowl. So, not saying like I know, again, why I was annoyed that Howie Roseman is getting so much credit is because like I feel like I would have drafted these guys. Like they went to Georgia.
Yeah, and
Duh.
also like even like something like signing Saquon, like, oh, okay, you want to sign or you think it's a genius move to sign the freak show running back that squats 700 pounds and was a monster for the Giants for less money than like Christian Kirk is getting? That doesn't take a genius to think that's a good idea, you know? Like it's great
It
that they did it. It worked out beautiful. It's why they were in the Super Bowl, but like I feel like everything he's been doing is like the duh move.
I know, and that's what's so annoying is like John Schneider is like trying to fucking overthink. Oh, I don't want to pay guards all this money, and it's like, bro, we haven't won a playoff game since Josh McCown was quarterbacking the team that just won last night. Okay.
Yeah, after he was coaching a high school like 3 weeks earlier. So that's I think that kind of says everything about the moves we've made right there. And granted, I think John Schneider has been a lot better in the last three off seasons. But this for me, I think I said this a few weeks ago. Like I feel like this season, this off season is for me sort of a make or break time for John and Gino. Because I think Mike, like if they move on from Mike, even if we go 6-11, that is malpractice, as in Mike McDonald. But those two guys that I mentioned, you know, they've been at this a long time. They're supposed to be really good, and it's time to see it all come together.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I just got a notification that we're running out of time here.
Hmm.
Didn't see that one coming. I thought this was going to be a 15-minute
Yeah,
episode, but
so much for a quick one.
well, I mean, I guess we haven't done an episode in like a week and a half that I mean, we were bound to have a lot to say. So,
Yeah, and we'll have a lot more to say throughout this off season. I cannot wait to get into draft season. It's kind of my favorite part of the podcast era,
I
just
think
because it's fun, it's exciting, it's fun to like track who the 19th best corner is in the draft and know who that is, and then maybe see them be good for like the fucking Titans in 2 years. You know, it's cool to see that all play out.
I'm just looking for because it made me realize like really the football season goes until draft because once the football season ends, it's like, okay, shift. Now I'm just going to be doing mock drafts for 2 straight months, and this is all I'm going to be thinking about. And then we have the fucking
The dark.
graveyard baseball era where we just have to watch our shitty baseball team since football is just done for 3 months. But
Yeah, May to August is a dark chapter in the football calendar for sure.
thank God the weather is nice during that time.
Oh yeah.
That's like the
Imagine
only
if it
thing
was
to keep
like
us
this time of
distracted.
year
And
where that'd be so horrible.
yeah, God, that would fucking suck. But yeah, that's what I got for the wrap up of the 2024 season. I guess this is kind of right around the time where the next season of JR Takes comes out. Really around the March era when Russell Wilson, March 8th.
Should
The
March 8th just be like the calendar cutoff for our
Yep.
seasons? I think it
Yes.
makes sense because that's when we started this whole thing. So
Yeah. 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 Let's do that.
cool.
But all right, guys. Well, thanks for stopping by and super glad the Chiefs lost. Honestly, didn't see that coming, but
Me
happy it
either.
happened. And I'm happy Travis Kelce didn't propose after the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would have made, I mean, 2025 is already off to a weird start, and that would have made the whole year harder. But thankfully, I feel much better about the future with how Sunday went, for sure.
Agreed. I feel like the Chiefs loss it brought balance back to the universe.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you
Yes, hit
soon.
that subscribe button, guys, and tune in for more of this.
Mwah. Yeah. Anywho, hope we didn't lose viewers because of that.
All right. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yep. See you next time.